Welcome, welcome, everyone. Good evening, good evening. I am Tracy Casey-Arnold, better known as TA. Excited to come to you tonight. Excited to come to you this whole entire month as we really come to the table and talk about what is happening right now, where this is Domestic Awareness Month. To me, this is about domestic when it comes to our homeland, violence and awareness, and to really talk about what's happening in our homeland. There's just many cases that I've seen now, many things coming up just daily that is not only just rocking my surface, it's just tearing my heart apart and just really even taking my breath away. And me and my husband Q have had many discussions when those things pop up. And just us knowing as pastors, as ministers of the word, and especially because we really want to come and talk to those, and share with those with who we are, because we do look at ourselves as superheroes for Christ. You're a superhero for Christ when you're a follower of Christ. And it's about really huddling and talking about those things and looking at, even when we look at the Holy Bible, and that's our reference book, that's our study guide, is finding something that really helps to give us an example of a time just like now that we're in, that happened in the Word, for us to know what does the Word say and to really look at it. And so tonight, you guys, again, for the Superhero for Christ show, I'm excited to be joined with my husband here next to me, Pastor Q, and excited to be joined with my brothers, as well. And again, I'm going to introduce them. Hopefully, you guys saw the first two shows that launched this month, which was last week, which was talking about on Monday, transference. And then on Tuesday, yes, I've got all y'all responses of spiritual transference that me and Quint brought. Man, that was an hour and a half show, but every single person who watched it, I saw you guys comment and I saw you share it, because to me, that is the foundational piece. According to what we are studying, it's the first thing that is shared in the Holy Bible that happens. It's spiritual transference. And so with that, let me welcome my brothers tonight, and hopefully we got everybody, looking good and zoomed in, and all the mics are checked and everything. And so let me go ahead and welcome my brother over to the right, my brother, blood brother over there. Hopefully he's feeling better, y'all. He's been under the weather, so if he looks like he's not feeling good, he's not feeling good. Lift him up in prayers, you guys. And with that, man, Byron, how are you doing and how are you feeling tonight?
I'm doing a little bit better, sister. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. It's a
Yeah.
blessing.
I'm really glad that you're here. When you text earlier, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make it, I'm like, oh no, it's supposed to be all my men on tonight. This is a big topic. So when you said, okay, hold up, tell me, what are we covering tonight? I just knew right there. I told Quint, he's coming. I know my brother. So I'm so glad that you're here. And then
I appreciate
also
it.
down below us, like the Brady Bunch, really excited. Mr. Local Life is in the house. Excited that he's here. And we're not really going to have a clock. So I'm Xing out this clock because it doesn't need to be here. There's no way we're going to have a clock on this. And so I'm excited to see you, Jeff, joining us tonight as one of the co-hosts of this show. Excited to have you. How are you doing tonight, Brother Jeff?
I'm doing amazing. It's been a good week so far.
That's
So
good.
I'm doing good. My
Yeah.
favorite part of the week.
That's good. Really glad to hear that. Now, you guys, I'm going to say this. If for some reason you see Q get up to adjust his lighting, it is the hardest thing when me and Quint are sitting next to each other to get lighting down. But I don't want him to look like he's fading away, like we're having a spiritual transference here on the
Hey,
show.
that's just the Lord's radiation.
So if he gets up to turn it down, he's going to do that. So we make
I
sure
have to
that you
wear a
guys
veil
can
like
see
Moses.
like Moses. Go, Q. And then with that, also my brother over here in the corner, but definitely not in the corner like Baby from, what is it, Dirty Dancing. We're not putting him in a corner at all. And so with that, Brother X, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're doing really good. I think for us, I can honestly say if we're not doing good, it is about what we're talking about today. No one can do good with that. No one, if you truly are a lover of people, if you value life, if you are a lover of Jesus Christ and you follow him, man, I'm just going to be very blunt and bold. I feel like your Holy Spirit should be jumping all over the place, and if you're not, I don't understand. And I just say this so respectfully to you. I'm not saying that you don't have faith in God, that God's got it. We're going to talk about a very intense moment. God had it. But my Lord, there were so many things going on that in those moments, man, like now, it's just things that just, you almost feel like the heart of Christ, you know, because we don't realize that he cries and mourns for us, and you cry and mourn for us and those that you see. And so with that, you guys, thank you for joining us. And again, if you are here tonight, I really am going to ask you to share this, okay? Because it is all month long, we're going to be talking about domestic violence awareness, but we're focusing on Homeland, our nation. And now I know why God had me do domestic violence early. Again, I'm just a follower of him. Now I know why, because I always do that. But this month, it needs to be about right now, especially with everything going on, even with the elections coming up. And we're not going to get political. We're not like that. But we do think it's important that we discuss this so that you could go in time with the Lord. And where we're going to end this month on, we have a goal and a mission that God has brought to us, you know, that we're going to do here on the Superhero for Christ show, because it is definitely a time for that. And you've been hearing me say it over and over, but we're really going to make sure to close out this month as strong leaders for Christ, just like you. You're his, we're his, and we should all be coming together, and we should be agreeable because we all are feeling and hearing him. And so with that, you guys, tonight, what I want to do is a little something different. I said that on my post. I want us to get into the Word. We're going to have to get into the Word. We're going to have to read the Word and not just reference it and talk about it. Because as I spent time on Sunday, I fasted and I went before the Lord, and I was going before the Lord on some other things. And I always liked the way me and Jesus' relationship is, that I could go to him with anything. But if he's got something on his mind, he's going to pause that and say, this is what I really want to talk to you about. And lo and behold, I knew he was giving me the chapters for this week, because it was 2 weeks ago. My brothers will tell you that I text them after a show saying, hey, I'm hearing violence, vengeance, anger, revenge. Can y'all lift that up in prayer? That was 2 weeks ago. And this Sunday, the Lord brought it. So it was confirmed. And so with that, you guys, we're going to be looking at this month, Luke 22 and 23. That's Luke 22 and 23. But over these next 2 weeks, we're just going to talk about Luke 22. Okay, we're going to break this down and really, 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 really study it. And so before we go in to read it, I'm going to give you guys a chance to grab a Bible, or if you've got another device, like we all have these devices that you can get to those scriptures so that we can really come together. To me, this is discipleship for today, is what me and Quip been talking about, my branding, you know, because superheroes are needed in the world, you know, is what my new title is getting ready to launch. And it's discipleship for today is what this is. And so I want to go to my brothers, and I want to ask this question, and you guys saw the first question that I was going to ask, and I want to read it verbatim, okay? What is one situation, and real quick, welcome everybody. Normally I do shout outs to everybody. You know, Lord, I hear you. Okay, Lord, I hear you. Come on. I'm already so focused on this that I want to get and dive into it, but my heart is about welcoming everybody. So welcome, you know, so excited that you're here. Karina Stipik, so glad that you're here. Man, Captain Kirk is in the house. So glad that you're here, James. Man, Mama O, so glad that you're here. Welcome. Jonna Roy, so glad that you're here, or it's Roy, so glad that you're here. Man, Daddy Casey is in the house. Biggin is in the house, so glad that you're here. Man, my sister Linda Woods, which is why I couldn't answer your call, sis. We were getting ready for this. So glad that you're here. Esselyn Eagley, or Eagle-Eye, so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. Deanna DeMarco, so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. Javier Rodriguez Ramos. Woo! Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. You just know my heart is excited that you're here tonight, brother. Tracy Try, or Trey, so glad that you're here. Welcome, welcome. Kurt Green and Jack Patterson, so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. Geoff Samuels, welcome, welcome. Lewis Gill, welcome. Jaylene Ray, welcome. Stephen Lewis, welcome. Sonia Soto, sister, welcome, welcome. And again, there's many people that are on. All I see is the number of those that are logged on that have liked the page. Okay, that's all we see, but we know many are going to be logged on, and many are going to watch this over the next couple of days. And so the very first thing that I want to kind of come to with my brothers tonight, you guys, and then I'll have Pastor Q share, and I'll share my story because it just happened. I really have had a story, and one keeps trumping the other. It keeps getting worse for me. And so I'm going to go to you first, Jeff. What is one situation that you've seen or you've heard or you've read about in the past 90 days that you saw done that you just couldn't believe? That it really hit you and it disturbed you, that you've never seen this before in your life, and that you couldn't believe that it was happening. And for you, it drove you to a conclusion of we are truly in intense times. We are in difficult and different times that we've ever been in. And maybe it shook your whole foundation, your faith, maybe even how you saw the future, and maybe it even got you to even question God. What is something that you have seen that has happened over the last 90 days to 120 days that you've just been shocked by?
Well, I honestly have to be honest. Not much shocks me these days. You know, this the level of things that are happening in the world and people's responses and what's the world in general has become numb to. Um, I think that process has been as disturbing as the actual things that have been occurring, is to watching how it just becomes the next thing that someone posts about and they go on with their lives without ever diving into what the true meaning of it is for someone, in particular to lose their life, or someone to lose their child, or for someone to lose a family member, and for there to be arguments about some sort of protocol or some sort of process that eliminates any type of responsibility to the people who took the life. And that's not how the Bible's built. The Bible's not built on all these protocols that allow you to do these things and take these lives, and for there not to be some sort of retribution associated with it. And so I think that's the part of it, because I have a lot of friends that, claim Jesus as their personal savior in public. Their behaviors don't resemble anything that I would call like Christ, So I think that's it. I think the social connection that people have had, I think the occurrences over the last probably 6 months, have shown me that our relationship to our salvation is fragile. I think a lot of people think that it's just there. And then when you look at their behavior and you look how they respond and you look what the conversation entails, it's fragile, because they're so easily swayed into the worldly beliefs about what's occurring, not the godly belief of every life is precious. I mean, so that's the most tragic thing for me. The young man who died over this past weekend, Jonathan Price.
Jonathan Price.
I posted something to his family, and went to my knees in prayer for that family. And unfortunately, one in the back of my head was, I just can't believe what's going to happen next. And the next thing is character assassination for a man who lost his life. And so that's the thing that has saddened me, because I've lived through some challenging things. My parents are from Mississippi and Alabama, so we've been through some things, and but it just saddens me that you have this people that are considered close to you that you think have your back and have the same belief system, and to see their behavior be contrary to that. So that's the thing that's been most challenging for me.
Yeah, and I completely understand that. Xavier, what about you? And everything that you've seen, if there's been one incident or something that has really just shook your foundation, or just just how you feel about things.
For me, it's just been kind of like Jeff. I've been seeing a lot of things on social media when it comes to a lot of just discrimination and racism and just separation. And you start seeing a lot of separation that's happening throughout the world, with color, with race, with political agendas, or even just, different type of mindsets and stuff. And, I've been seeing just different people that, they post their opinion, but just kind of like Jeff said, you're kind of like, whoa, bro, like, hold up. Hey, that's not Christ-like right there. That's very ignorant. The things that you're saying on social media. That's one thing that's been, getting on my, nerves a little bit, just kind of seeing, different things like that. At the same time, I know I talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I talked about, something ever happening to my daughter and stuff like that, or my son, and just pedophile and stuff like that, and just seeing that the world is more accepting of it now. And it's kind of like, wow, like when did you ever expect that to ever happen? Like never in my wildest dreams did I expect something like that to happen. And I don't know if it's because of coronavirus and just people are just starting to, loosen up a little bit, but it's kind of like that's unacceptable. And that's certain things that just drives me insane and drives me to the point where I'm kind of like, wow, like these are definitely the last days. The last days. God is definitely showing up, and He's definitely going to come around. So.
Hmm. Wow. So I even heard you say that it's taken you all the way to this is it. That
Oh
you're
yeah.
like even looking out the window, waiting, for that moment, or you're like, Lord, just I'm ready to be beamed up. I'm ready
Yeah.
because of things
Yeah, and
like
it's
this.
crazy because if you look at what's happening right now, and it's crazy with all of this coronavirus stuff going on, and you see, churches are being kind of like closed down where you can't attend the churches. So this is all dependent on your personal relationship with Christ. How are you living? Are you really into the Word? Are you really into praise and worship? Like, what are you doing right now? And you're starting to see certain people that is kind of like phasing out, and you're kind of like, wow, man, like that's like church is the building, but at the same time, you have to have that personal relationship with God, and you start seeing like, you
Mm,
know, just the whole separation that's happening. And I know for a fact that, man, just based on everything that's happening, it's in the last revelation, it's in the scriptures, and you just know pretty soon, yeah. Feed me up, Lord, please.
mm. Wow, that's pretty powerful what you also shared. And I'm going to go to Byron, but I heard you talk about that those that are really having, issues, not to say that closing a church isn't a big deal, but that challenges people because if they have never had a true relationship with Christ where the building doesn't, create it, it's just a place you go to worship, they're going to be struggling because they feel like this whole closed off from Christ when literally Christ tore the veil and said, I'm right here. So wow, X, that's deep. Which is why I didn't really want to come with a lot of questions. I didn't want to tailor this night. I wanted it to be, what do you guys think? So I love that you shared that, X. Byron, what has been something for you that you've seen or that has really just rocked you or you've just been really disturbed by or concerned?
Sure. Thanks, sis. Yeah, as usual, I'm in sync with my Christian brothers, right? That's one of the blessings and one of the things you can count on, if you stay close to Scripture, you hang with people that are like-minded, God-fearing Christian men, aspiring to be more like the example that we've given Luke, right? In this chapter, Luke's talking about Jesus Christ being the perfect example, right? So what disturbs me at this time, right? If we're going to backdrop, you know, chapter 22, Luke 22, and talk about that and what was going on at that time. There's a lot to be disturbed about. For me, I put down, just kind of a light way of describing, what I feel like people are doing today. We continue to have, the it's called, what a lot of people are using the term, systemic racism. Yeah, that's come to a level of awareness and needing us all to. We're going to touch on this into the chapter as well. As Christians, we got to be awake, right? We can't. This is not a time for us to be asleep. When God calls us, right, we have to be awake and ready to serve, and serve others. So yeah, I'm struggling with exactly what Xavier touched on, and I've espoused this and said this to friends and family. I refuse to get on board with the banter that goes on social media, because I earnestly and honestly believe there is no good when it comes to you forming your opinions in social media when it's about shooting down the way that someone feels about something, right or wrong, right? I understand the motivation, but it's problematic when you're more so putting your focus on basically being divisive. Exactly what Xavier was saying. That's exactly how I feel. We spend too much time. We're too at ease with being divisive. We're not looking to do as God asks us to do. If you're in a position of leadership, right? He asks you to lead by serving, right? You should be asking those persons, how can I serve you? You know, Tracy, a couple of weeks, maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, you gave a great example about you were on social media and you had this one person that was just being disruptive, right? And that was you could tell that was his charter, that was his goal. I mean, that's what tickled his fancy, right? Was to come in and be disruptive, right? And be agnostic or be an antagonist as to what you were doing, not being supportive, but that was his motivation. And that to me, that's symbolic of maybe a lot of people don't go to that nth degree that he did that day. And the cool thing was, I think you turned him around by
Yeah.
your patience, by
Yeah.
you being Christian like, by you loving on him,
Yeah.
right? Not going there with him. He flipped you flipped the script basically, right? On back on him, and he mirrored and saw himself, right? And you gave an example, as God would help us. You gave an example as to how he should proceed, right? I could go on and on. Yes. So for me, it's there's no one thing. It's the fact that God has put us in a position where and the backdrop, not only this chapter and what we're going to cover this month, but this pandemic is an opportunity for us all to basically measure up, right? God has basically said, I have put you in. It can be worse. I've put you in dire straits, right? And I'm expecting you to basically assess yourself,
Yeah.
find someone, find me, right? Look to me basically to know how to act at these times.
Yep. Yep. I love that, man. Let me say this. I love you, brothers, because I don't have to give you any preparation, which is why I really choose not to, because I want the true, authentic. It's funny as you guys know, we went and studied again these two scriptures before we came on, me and Pastor Q. And Q got to a place where he was really seeing, whoa, in what God was bringing in these two chapters. And he started preaching on the couch. I said, hey, 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 don't bring that preaching right now. Bring it for the show. He goes, okay, well, I'm just saying. I said, don't preach here. I need you to preach on the show, because you just get, when you read what we're about to read, it's just really, it's going to do this, but I'm hoping we're going to be able to grab pieces of it by dissecting it, that we can really not just glean from. I don't want to glean from it. I want
Yeah.
it, and I'm asking God to speak on this show, to have his children hear him, and then to almost order it. I know it sounds kind of, I want him to order it so that we just feel like, with what Christ says, what's happening in these two chapters, that if this is truly us being a follower of Christ, then it doesn't matter what we feel. It doesn't matter what social media says. It doesn't matter even our things that we are coming with from our past. We are to lay that down and follow him and do what he says to do and mimic him, because in these two chapters, this is exactly what was going on in these two chapters. And so I just want us to take 5 minutes, because, we're going to be bringing, things here. But has there been a moment for you, Q, where there was something that you heard about, that just really kind of hit you, that you saw in the news or anything? One of the things we've discussed?
I think there have been several things. What Jeff mentioned was a shocker to me. I mean, to see that happen to a guy who was like a hometown hero almost. It was well known. This wasn't some stranger, right? But more than that, though, I think what I've seen gradually and now it's become more and more evident is the weaknesses and fractures within individuals, within people, right? I mean, in the Army, I would deploy for a year, and there would be a year that I was living about as simple as you could live, right? In some cases, I was living on a tank with three other guys, and that was life. You know what I mean? You didn't have all the niceties. couldn't get to a phone, couldn't talk on the phone, right? And even when you were in the field, you learned. I mean, life just got stripped down to its basic elements, right? The most basic form, and so to see when you get now, like X mentioned, we're in coronavirus. When you see that now people can't go live the life they normally get to live.
Oh no, this is good.
Right? They don't. I can't socialize with my normal group of friends.
Oh,
I
this
can't
is
go hang
real
out
good, Colonel.
in the club. I can't go grab a beer. Right? Not that I go do that, but people can't go do that. We can't go to the movies. Right? Just things. I can't go out to a restaurant and have a dinner. Just and just socialize. Right? The way we normally can't go to a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
And socialize. So these basic things that we have that have made up a huge part of our lives have now been stripped away, and you begin to see in some cases just how empty a person's life is, just how fractured it is, just how broken it is. And quite frankly, social media is just a mechanism by which to measure and see all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That and how prevalent that is astounding to me. Because again, I'm kind of used to life being stripped down to its basic form for years at a time. Being in the Army, I like the niceties now, but where's that resolve? Where is that resiliency that we need as people? To survive difficulties, challenges. Man, we just got thrown into this one, and now you're seeing just how significant or how much of a vacancy or deficiency that this is in people's lives. So that's what's been astounding to me to watch.
Wow, that's really good. I'm loving all these perspectives. They're each different. I'm looking at the clocks. I know I want to start reading scripture right at the half hour. For me, and Jeff, you touched on it, and all I'm going to do is just do a TA moment on it. That we've gotten to a place, and again, enemy schemes, and what the Lord is allowing, and we're going to kind of go into that tonight, is that I see something and think, oh, dear God, that's horrific. But the next thing I see, I'm like, oh, dear God, it's even more worse than what I saw before. It's something that there's no limit. There's no top. There's just seems to be no boundaries, no, respect, no, sense of mind, or conscious, or, people are just, and it may be all these things that we're saying as to what all of this is doing to people and how far it's taking people and to what depths it's taking people to just not care or to do things where there is truly no consciousness. And I am going to say one. I want to share one story because I want to paint the ugliness of where we are right now as a nation. I don't want to tiptoe around it. I want to go hard for Christ. Was the one that just happened 2 days ago. A young man who had his baby, and obviously the mom and the dad were separated, and this was him watching her. She was only, I think, 10 months old, or and I want to get that right, but she was at least under 2 years, and I think it was 10 months old. And lo and behold, there's a call, a 911 call by the dad. And it is the most horrific call that they've ever received, ever known to me in my life, ever known to a police department, from what I read. That lo and behold, when they got there, this man had totally raped his 10-month-old daughter. And then prior to him calling the police, he was on Google doing Google searches of how do you know if your baby is not breathing anymore? How do you know if your baby is dead? I mean, we're talking, there was no sense of anything in that moment. And then lo and behold, he's calling in a 911 call. And they get to the place and tried to resuscitate that baby and couldn't. And found a diaper with blood everywhere. How do we get to a place like that? How does all of this cause people to lose their mind? Or how do we ever as individuals get to a place, and it can happen, It's like me speaking up for people and they go, how can somebody commit suicide? You'd be amazed how easy it can be to get somebody to a place where they give up and feel like they're insignificant, that they want to take their life. You'd be amazed, which is why I believe wholeheartedly the Lord is allowing things that are just going to change us, that are going to revolt us, that are going to get us to break in half, to get us to come to attention, to realize that there is a need for his people. There's a need, for example, there's a need for love. There's a need for service. There's a need to care about your neighbor. There's a need to go help the homeless. There's a need to go help those struggling. There's a need to help those struggling in porn. There's a need to help all of these, because without Christ, and we're the church, this shows me a true picture of what our world will look like if we don't stand up and we don't preach and share Christ, that we stop being passive. To me, it showed me how dark can it get. That to me was just, I couldn't even sleep. And I couldn't even, and especially when I scrolled down, and I had to, I wanted to look at what that baby looked like. I wanted God to brand it on me in such a way that I couldn't just ignore it. I couldn't just forget about it. And then when me and Quentin saw what she looked like, dear God, if that is where we have gotten, Lord, because we've done all these years of removing Christ out of every single thing, or even us as followers of Christ becoming passive and lukewarm, worried about offending other people, or not standing up and standing strong in that, and especially in a time like this is where we're headed. This is what we're going to see. And I don't believe that this is the worst of it. I think there's far more to come. And so what I want to do, tonight is I've given, you guys that you saw the post, I've given this to my brothers, and, I was in fasting on Sunday and the Lord gave them to me. And then me and Quint read them again on the couch and spent about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours diving in and really hearing these things. And so I want to read these, because again, we're going to ask one question and we're going to break sections of this. And so I liked what Pastor Q said. Pastor Q said, let's, go ahead and read, all of 22 right now. And then when we go to the last 2 weeks, we'll read 23, because it's both chapters that we are going to be studying. And then after I read it, we have some sections of verses that we're going to look at, that we're going to discuss. And I really would love those of you that are on with us, that are watching it live, and even those that are going to get this over the last couple of days, is for you to really read these scriptures, grab another device, and for you to share here. Okay, for you to talk about what you heard, what you've seen, what you feel about these things, whether you agree or disagree with the word. Okay, I want you to share that. And so again, you guys, we're going to go to Luke, 22. So this is literally right before Jesus is taken to be tried and persecuted, innocent, tried and persecuted. And I love where it starts. It starts at the festival of the unleavened bread. Okay, is where it starts. And again, we're looking at Luke 22, and I hope you guys can hear me. If you can't, say you can't hear me, but I'm hoping you can. Sister Rachel, I see you on. If you can just do a notification for me and say, sis, I can hear you, I would really appreciate that. And so chapter 22, now the festival of the unleavened bread, called the Passover, was approaching, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some way to get rid of Jesus, for they were afraid of the people. Key moment here. Then Satan entered Judas. Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. And Judas went to the chief priest and the officers of the temple guard and discussed with them how he might betray Jesus. He consented and watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over to them when no crowd was present. Then came the day of the unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. A little low, but you can hear. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit closer. We'll just keep moving it around is what we'll do. Thank you, sister. So let me start on 7 again. Then came the day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover." "Where do you want us to prepare it?" they asked. He replied, "As you enter the center, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house that he enters and say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asked, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, all furnished. Make preparations there." They left and found these things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover. When the hour came, Jesus and his apostles reclined at the table, and he said to them, "I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat again until it finds fulfillment in the kingdom of God." After taking the cup, he gave thanks and said, "Take this and divide it among you. For I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes." And he took bread, gave thanks, and he broke it and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which poured out for you. But the hand of him who is going to betray me is with mine on this table. The Son of Man will go, as it has been decreed, but woe to the man who betrays him." They began to question among themselves which of them it might be who would do this. A dispute also arose among them as to which one of them was considered to be the greatest. Jesus said to them, "The kings of the Gentile lord is over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves the table? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as one who serves. You are those who have stood by me in my trials, and I confer on you a kingdom, just as my Father conferred one on me, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat, but I've prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." But he replied, "Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death." Jesus answered, "I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you know me." Then Jesus asked them, "When I sent you without purse and bag or sandals, did you lack anything?" "Nothing," they answered. He said to them, "But now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It is written, 'And he was numbered with the transgressors.' And I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment." The disciples said, "See, Lord, here are 2 swords." And then he says, "That's enough," he replied. And then as we go to conclude, Jesus went out as usual to Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, as his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. When he rose from prayer and went back to the disciples, he found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation." While he was still speaking, a crowd came up, and the man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" When Jesus' followers saw what was going to happen, they said, "Lord, should we strike with our sword?" And one of them struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his right ear. But Jesus answered, "No more of this. and he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple guard, and the elders who had come for him, I am leading a rebellion that you have come with swords and clubs? Every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me. But this is your hour when darkness reigns. Then seizing him, they led him away and took him into the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him at all," he said. A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one with him." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. And then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. The men who were guarding Jesus began mocking and beating him. They blindfolded him and demanded, "Prophesy, who hit you?" And they said many other insulting things to him. At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and the teachers of the law, met together, and Jesus was led before them. "If you are the Messiah," they said, "tell us." Jesus answered, "If I tell you, will you not believe me? And if I ask you, you would not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God." They all asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He replied, "You say that I am." Then they said, "Why do we need any more testimony? We have heard it from his own lips." And we're going to stop here. We're just going to dive in to 22, you guys. And so my question, for you guys, we're going to look at verses 1 through 5, 14 through 22, 24 through 30, and 31 through 35. And if we don't get to finish these, no worries. We're not rushing this month. Okay, we're going to accomplish what the Lord has asked us to accomplish. And so my question that I had on number 2, and whoever wants to, answer this, with what we just read, are there any parallels that you immediately see with our now times in reference to the times in this chapter in particular with 22, with the Last Supper, and even Jesus being tried as an innocent man and being betrayed? And so anybody want to comment? I'm going to let you decide if you've got something you want to say on that. I'm going to let you go first versus calling on you. So anybody want to add to that or have a comment, Byron?
Sure. And I saw you, brother. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to beat you out. I'll be quick. For me, yeah. When I read that and trying to make parallels, Tracy, which was kind of your ask for us. It was kind of what I talked to and spoke to earlier. God basically went actually here and had this meal with them, in preparation of things to come. Right? It was like he's foreboding. He's telling them the things that are going to happen. Right? He's setting up, the scenarios, how things are going to play out, and he's expecting his disciples to not only be prepared, and I like to use the word arm up. Be prepared to that you're going to be tested, right? And I think that's our parallel today. I think today these are times that as Q stated, we're being tested, right? We're having things that our comforts stripped from us. Many of us, right? Where I'm most comfortable when I'm able to socialize. That is minimized. At least socializing for me is in person, not necessarily through social media, and that's stripped. And it affords you an opportunity to think, what does God have for you, and what is coming, and what does this time mean for us? So I see many parallels as to what's going on now. God is talking to us, but you have to be awake and you have to listen to the things that He's telling us. There are many signs for us to pay attention to.
That's good. Jeff, over to you. I know you were going to add.
Well, we'll tell you from the previous conversation, it kind of connects to what X was talking about, and people being out in COVID, and not having the connection of being able to go into the church, and then Quint was talking about it as well. And I've read these verses many times before, but this is the first time I really noticed that Luke 22:3 says Satan entered Judas.
Yes. Yes.
It wasn't that Judas was set to betray Jesus, but the devil came to him specifically in that to play his role.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're seeing is that these people don't have connections that are holding them close to Christ. They don't have these people that are able to reconcile them with who they are and who they want to be and who they aspire to be, and they're not staying in the Word. And so you get a lot of time at home and you're watching Netflix or whatever things you're watching, and the devil has the ability to creep in.
Come on.
Because you're not secure. Every day that you're away from other people that are supporting you, and you're not purposely getting into the Word and connecting with people who can help you stay there, the devil's just waiting, and the stuff that I'm seeing is frightening. So watching how easily it was, easily is probably the wrong word for Peter, watching how challenging it was for him to stay in his faith and for him to deny Jesus 3 times. It is so much easier in the world today to walk away from Christ because they weren't Peter.
Come on.
I can imagine how difficult that was.
That's good,
Right?
Jeff.
How easy is it for everybody who had, quote unquote, made the commitment? They go to church every weekend. They go see their fellows, and there's things in your life that cause you to really make that connection with Christ and give your life over. And if they're not in that space for that opportunity to occur, the devil's hanging out. That somebody sent me something from Netflix the other day where they had girls at the age of 11 pole dancing.
Yep.
And
they just got indicted.
Debating whether it should be on TV or not. I'm
Come
like,
on.
how is that a conversation?
Yeah. Come on.
What's debatable there?
Granted, if you want it to be something that you need to talk about because it's happening and it's tragic, let's have that conversation.
Come on, Jeff.
Let's not put it on Netflix.
Come on.
But that's it creeping into the world. They're having TED Talks about, talking about that, relationships between adults and children is a category of relationships. And I'm like, no, that is not.
Yep.
But that's what happens when you have all these people that are separated, that they can create these personas and have these conversations and rally people that think like them without there being any repercussions. What is that saying? Mike Tyson says that everybody has a game plan that they get punched in the mouth.
Right.
Well, without being in a social construct where someone's going to check you on your behavior, no one's getting punched in the mouth.
Right.
You can get social media and rally people who believe like you, and all of a sudden you're hearing. I mean, I've been watching stuff about the social dilemma and the great hack. Information is being fed to you to reinforce whatever behavior you're questioning, whether it's okay or not. They're going to convince you that it is.
Come on.
So that happens because you don't have good people around you to tell you that, nah, it doesn't work that way, bro.
Come on.
So that's what connected me, is that, this separation is an opportunity for us to get right with Christ, turn within ourselves and do the right things. But for those who don't have that, it's the perfect opportunity for them to run off and do the devil's doing. And the world is worldly.
Yeah.
And everything that you have, 99% of everything that you're going to absorb while you're in isolation is going to be worldly. So
I love that.
The results are showing up, and it's terrifying.
Yep. I see my sister Sharon, because she's in total agreement. She hates all of that, what's going on right now. The fact that we've gotten to a place that there's no respect or decency. Nobody's thinking about what's right, what's wrong. They're more fighting just the rights that people have, when they're not looking at the ramifications and the effects of that, and what does that speak. And then not only that, the filming of that. Hello, there was filming of that with children. And again, like I said, they're indicted now, because in Texas they are. And I guarantee you other people are going to probably, do the same thing. But
he didn't indict their parents.
come on. I thought about that. How does a child even get on there as a minor unless their parents authorized it? Those are those things that, again, where's Christ in that? Where's the relationship with Christ in that? There isn't one. And if there is, you may know of him, but his word says, Jesus says, well, I don't know you. You may know me, but I don't know you. And so it really is, like I said, just some interesting times right now and things that are going on. Like I mentioned last week about all these people marching saying F you Jesus, and you see little babies, following them, and young, teenagers not even understanding what all that means because mom and daddy told them that. Then you got people who know better that are doing it. We're in some interesting times. And so I want to go to verses 1-5 just because Jeff brought that up. I think it's crucial because it is only that I saw in Luke, and that's why I love that God brought it to me. We've read this part many times. I guarantee you, many times have we read this part, but never before in all my years of reading the Bible and preaching the word have I ever seen, or I missed it. And God's like, you missed something, but I need you to see it today. Where right at the very beginning, it says Satan entered Judas. And I just got that on Sunday, but what did I bring early last week? Spiritual transference. Again, if you did not see my 2 shows last week, that's why I didn't go on any other time until today. It says I need you to go and watch it. It is that quick from what you watch to what you even allow yourself to hear, to your environment, even with people touching you. That spiritual transference of the enemy being able to have place, to have way. And then if you stay in that, and little by little, you find yourself in situations where even when you think you're doing right, you're not in the house of Jesus, you're in the house of the enemy. And the longer you stay, you go from being at the entry gate on 5th floor. This is really where we've got to be aware, because spiritual transference, the enemy being able to take place, the enemy being able to woo and influence, and the enemy being able to, when you completely turn away or you walk away or you just give up, that you allow him in, he can possess you. Sounds deep, sounds eerie. It's in the word. And that's where we got to really study. And so that, to me, that very first part of verse 1-5, just really, like you said, Jeff, whoa. That it lets us know. Now, maybe Judas obviously had maybe some issues for the enemy to be able to do it, or the Lord allowed it, irregardless. But everything that was happening next was Satan being completely in control. And like we were discussing, and if you want to share, how all it takes is one act of the enemy, and it could cause a domino ripple effect. And then here's all these people falling in line suit, reacting to one act that the enemy did in that moment, and it caused a fire where here's all this chaos and commotion, here's all this disarray, destruction, and then, like I think all of you guys said, and then those that are struggling who don't really have Christ in a relationship, we're going to see the effects of that and what happens. And so do you want to add on that, Pastor Q?
What really spoke to me in that first 5 verses, yeah, use some microphone here. What really spoke to me, in what you're describing, Satan is really responding, though, to what the Pharisees are trying to do. The Pharisees want to murder Jesus. We're not talking about killing. They want to murder Jesus. And that's a sin. These are the spiritual pillars of their society, the men who uphold the law, the spiritual law of their society, and they want to murder Jesus. All of them. They all want to murder him. So Satan is using, he indwells, or he possesses Judas in response to the Pharisees and what the Pharisees are trying to accomplish, to facilitate the Pharisees' desires here. And that takes me to so much of what we're seeing today, where people they have no problem murdering other people. I mean, we're seeing it rampant today. I mean, I just was reading something about how they just stopped a plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan. I mean, I don't necessarily, know her that well, don't agree with her policies, but since when do we try and go kidnap and murder the governor of Michigan, or for anyone for that matter? I mean, that's happening in our communities, and people are just doing it with no regard for their conscience or no regard for what's right.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's the parallel I see with 1 through 5 and what we're seeing today is that, I mean, Satan is moving in response to the desires of these people's hearts.
Come on. God, that's powerful, right?
You know what
there.
I'm saying?
It's like saying what I'm going to give it to you in short term, that if what is happening in the nation is desires that match the enemy is almost like a movie. And I'm sorry, I got to go there. Okay, I love movies where they realize that a person with fire, if you go and try to put him out with fire, he's just going to become what? More powerful with fire. So here's an enemy who wants to destroy and literally take out everything that has to do with Jesus. Every belief, every image, every person who is having faith in Jesus, living life for Jesus. So if there is all of a sudden this hate, this anger, racism, murder, all of these things, pride even, jealousy, all that does is fuel his power of not only influence over others, because those things influence people, but then also be able to take. As I broke down, you guys have got to go see those 2 episodes last week, very deep studies that I brought, to where depending upon where your spirit is at, if it's not been truly received by Christ and you receive Christ as your Lord and Savior, and to have a real rooted relationship, like the seed, if it's just laying on the ground, it's going to be blown away. If it's just a little rooted, it's going to be rooted up when there's trouble. Is it really rooted down in the ground that even in a storm like this, you're still under the ground, rooted to the Lord? That he could just come and pick up seeds, pick up people, can just touch people and use them because of what they're feeling in their heart. Like when the president got sick with COVID. The post, whether you agree with him or disagree, but wishing the man would die, saying, well, great, then maybe he'll die from this as well. Do you not even realize what you're saying? That you're saying that you're okay with killing somebody. It doesn't matter if his belief don't match ours or his belief has another connotation, but when you go and say those things, you think it's attacking the president. It's attacking you. It's affecting who you are. It is breaking you down. And then to say that you're a believer of Christ, which is why I'm going to just say this P.S. Jeff, I swear to you, you can just post one thing and people go crazy over it. You're over here talking about this and people go crazy, like the one that just happened again this week that I had to send you a message because that message, I was about to post it on your page and I thought, I am not going to go take a poop on Jeff's personal page. Because our brother be calling, did you really have to do that, Pastor Tracy? Yes, I did. I just sent it to Jeff and said, oh my God, are we kidding here? This is how deep we've gotten. But this is really this month about us really looking at how bad it is, not to make you more heavy-hearted. Like the word said, your sorrow is what puts you in temptation, is what the word said. Your heaviness, the word said that is what tempts you, is what Jesus said. It's for us to find our belief and our peace in Christ so we can rise up, not be taken and wooed by the enemy. Okay, so X, I want to go to the next, ones, and we'll probably end here. We're going to look at Luke 14:22. Okay, this is where Jesus is basically betrayed. Okay, and this is where all of this, and if we want to kind of go to Luke 14:22, and X, I want you to comment. Okay, we'll go to that 14:22 here. When the hour came, Jesus and his apostles reclined at the table. And he said to them, I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat again until it finds fulfillment in the kingdom of God. And this is where he talks about how someone has betrayed him. They're sitting here eating. They're at a very significant event, okay, which is the Passover meal. And him knowing that Judas is going to be the one to betray him and send him to his death, he's allowing him to eat at the table, allowing him to drink of a representation that's supposed to be his blood, break up the bread and eat, which is supposed to be he's giving him his blood and his body, knowing that this man is the thing that the enemy is using to send him to his death. X, I want you to expand on that, because talk about speaking to us as followers of Christ in a moment when all we see is betrayal and hate, segregation and murder, and some of the most disgusting things that I've ever seen. But if we say we follow Christ, man, talk to me, X, about what does this say to you in this moment? Because this is huge, bro.
Yeah, for me, so this right here gives a prime example of how we should be as Christians. You know, Jesus had the person who's going to betray him at the table, like you said, eating the bread, which is his body, drinking the wine, which is his blood, and he, Jesus knows that he's fulfilling his purpose with this, which is, you know, sacrificing himself for us. But at the same time, you know, to me, it just shows me exactly how you should be as a Christian. Even though there's people around you that's betraying you and everything like that, you still love them. Even they had the conversation. It's crazy because when I'm reading this, it's like somebody trying to switch the topic. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like here he's saying somebody's going to betray me, and then it switches the topic to, well, who's the best out of all of us? And you're kind of like,
come on, that's good, Xavier.
Like when I was reading, I'm like, well, hold up, did Judas try to flip the topic, or somebody try to switch it real quick and just switch things around and stuff like that to distract, you know, the whole course of the whole Passover? And then Jesus is telling them, hey, whoever's the person that serves the most, you know, you could be the best or whatever like that, but who's the one that's serving here? I'm the one that's serving and still here at this table and all that, and to stay young or whatever like that. But it's just crazy just reading this, but it just shows me exactly what you need to be, and that's Christ-like when things are going, you know, within your life where you know that there's something going on, you know, still show that love, still serve others. And just like Jeff said, with 1 through 5, like this crazy, because that's the first time I ever seen that.
Yep.
And Satan entered, and I was like, and I had to reread it again because I've never, like, even hearing it from different pastors, I've never heard that. But when I read it again, I'm like, man, that's crazy. That's the first time I ever seen that just pop up like that. So.
Yeah, and I will tell you what it did for me with that whole verse 1 through 5, and even getting into 14 to 22, because 1 through 5 helps me as just a human being. We talked about this, okay? Our true, real, raw self that we need to die to always, as Paul says, is, wow, Jesus knew that he was the one sitting to his death, and he still allowed him to eat in the house, to even come up in the house, to even eat. And remember, this Passover dinner is a representation of an actual event. It's a holy event. See, the actual Passover and the festival of the unleavened bread is to represent the time of when God freed the slaves from Egypt, and how there was an actual sacrificial lamb that was, you know, shed, and that blood was the blood that was used to put above their houses so that that spirit of death could pass them. Yeah. And then they were supposed to eat of the lamb. So even though the meal, the actual Last Supper, came first versus at the end of when Jesus was dead, it's still the same thing. It is the same ritual that is being done, that had been done to celebrate freedom of God's people. And the sacrificial lamb that was going to be sacrificed was Jesus. So in that moment, this is a deep, holy moment for me. That this moment is all about that. And here is God breaking bread, saying, this is my body. Like, this is the lamb. Like, you would be eating pieces of the lamb. Here's me. Eat of me. Here's my blood. Okay, versus blood being shed, by a lamb. Drink of my blood. It was a so serious moment that for the Lord to, even in that moment, serve Judas. Wow. And then I love what you said, X, because it didn't even hit me until you said it. That the moment they're saying that, and don't get me wrong, because in another place in the Bible, there is a moment where Jesus says that he's going to die soon and his time is coming and someone's going to betray him. And they're all trying to figure out who's betraying him, who's betraying him, who's betraying him. They have a moment. But I really just believe that, wow, Lord, like you said, X, this is such a moment for us to learn from. And this is really where I feel the challenge, is at. Knowing that really at that moment, it wasn't Judas that was sitting at the table. It was Satan sitting at the table. Okay, come on, Lord. That was a moment for me. It wasn't just Judas sitting at the table. This was Satan sitting at the table at a holy moment that is based on a festival to honor God, and he still even served Satan. Wow. I just had a moment right now. Oh my God, anybody else want to comment? Byron, I want to go to you. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's a moment to me right there.
Yes, sis. I was kind of reflecting on the whole piece where, again, back to talking about the devil and Judas, and I was thinking, and I think one of the guys mentioned it. You have to have your vessel, your spirit, your soul filled with, with Christ, and a lot of what is occurring here, to me is symbolic as well, right? Many times when you're trying to, for me, when I'm trying to understand, what does this represent in today's terms, right? Well, this is God telling me, have me present. He says, do this in remembrance of me. And I think we're in the best position when we make sure that we have God in our presence, right? If you, and I think it was you, Tracy, if you find yourself going somewhere where you know that people are not like-minded, I highly recommend that you fill your spirit and your soul with Christ, right? So that he's there with you. If you go in with a half-filled cup, right, or with an empty cup, and you're subject to have things poured or filled into your cup that you don't need, right, or don't serve Christ or don't serve you. And so I think it's really important to kind of understand there's a lot in this chapter. My father, who's a preacher, has preached many a sermons just on the blood of Christ, and what that means symbolically to us, right? But these acts, there's so many acts, there's so many things that God is doing purposely in this time, right? And purposely. And I think if we look to mimic him, we have to be purposeful in serving God and serving others. So there's so much to learn in this brief discourse here, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. Jeff and Q, I'm gonna let you also comment on this, and then I'll close with the last comments. Again, just this first half here, we haven't even got beyond verse 22. There's so much here. But that whole betrayal, that to me it just speaks. We haven't even got to 23 with the persecution, and everything, the crucifixion, because that's deep. We think this is deep. That's on a whole nother level. But right here, it so appliques exactly how we are supposed to be, and that we've got a choice to make.
Yeah.
Okay, that this is the Lord presenting truth to us, black and white, in case we don't know it. It's the word. And now we're making a choice. And Jeff, and I want you to speak to this because I just know this resonates with you. And that we must understand that what we do next, because the word says once you know truth and you're no longer ignorant and you know truth, what you do next is crucial.
Right.
And this may be that we could be walking down the wrong road. Look at what happened with Peter. And I love that he says, and Peter, when you turn back to me, now go help your brothers, okay? This is where there's a true fork in the road right now that we're in. that we can no longer ignore. We have got to make a choice and make a decision, or we will be held accountable. So, Jeff, you and I love that black and white stuff. We're so black
Yeah.
and white, you and I. So, I want you to speak on that.
So for me, Luke 22 is Christ revealing to his disciples what the world is going to look like moving forward.
That's good.
He pulls himself away and allows them to cascade and deny him and do what they will do without his presence. That's really what it was. He allowed himself to be pulled away, and with his presence being missing, they went back to the worldly things. The fear of being persecuted caused him to deny Christ.
Come on.
And so they just began to fall apart. You know, Jesus knew that, because he knew that when he left the world, that's what the world was going to be left to, making the choice to stay connected to him or not. And if they weren't connected to them, that's when you fall prey to denying him 3 times, no matter, you know, what you think you're capable of. And for the devil to step in and sit at the table with his disciples.
Come on.
You know,
Woo!
he is the level of craftiness and what he looks like to people, because Judas looked like their brother.
Yeah, that's
but
good.
Judas had some sort of battle taking place that allowed the devil to step in and be, you know, in his place to carry that out. And Christ knew that was going to happen. And so we have to be cognizant of the fact that the people that we surround ourselves with, the company that we keep, communication we have with others, the things that we say, the things that we do, what we fill ourselves with, if we're not filling ourselves with the things of Christ, you know, my mom used to always tell me when we left the house to go visit friends that she never took hungry children to a friend's house, you know, because you might get over there and have to eat stuff that you don't normally eat. So she always made sure we got fed before we left so that we didn't want for anything when we got there. And Byron was talking to that. And sometimes if we don't get that, and right now we're all secluded and we don't get that, you know, we go out into the world and interact with these people and we want to be filled with something. And the devil can make it feel good. You know, it sounds like it makes sense. It sounds like, you know, family and friends and all these things. And really what you're doing is you're turning your back to Christ and you're being worldly and you're protecting your things.
That's good.
You know, so that's what kind of resonates with me, is this whole process is an opportunity for Christ to let them know what's to come. And for us to reflect on that and understand we're responsible for maintaining that relationship so that we're not being filled with things that are of the world and allowing things like the things that we're seeing occur, and then holding each other accountable too. I mean, there was 12 of them.
That's good. Yep, because he even said, go back and now strengthen your brothers. And I say this to those that say, look, I know Christ, I love Christ, but they don't care about thy brother and thy sister. There's an issue there.
Yeah.
But you say, well, I'm good. I think this is ridiculous. Why are people complaining about that? I don't see what the big deal is. If you don't see what the big deal is, if you don't feel called to protect thy brother, thy sister, whether you know them or not, and maybe you need to go into prayer and ask God, how do you want me? Or is it my place, Lord? Because the word says this. The word says that if you know something and you don't share it and you know it's not right, the way that God looks at it, their sin is your sin, is what he says. Okay, that we are called to. And not only that, the other piece that I love is where he told Peter, he's like having a moment, man, Simon, I need you to know something. The enemy's after you, bro. Okay, and then Jesus said, and I've prayed for you to stay strong in your faith so that he doesn't get you. That's some deep stuff that Jesus is saying. I've prayed for you so that the enemy doesn't get you. And that to me says so much about what Jesus knows our struggle is going to be. You know, our struggle is going to be, somebody's saying I wasn't loud enough, but we're good. You're making sure, you know, that was powerful when here we know how the story ends with Peter. Peter and Paul end up being the biggest people of all to go preach the word. But here he was in this moment being challenged. He just said, look, I need you to know you're going to have an issue. Okay. And so Pastor Q, I'm going to let you kind of have some last words. Anybody else have any words before I let Pastor Q, Byron, X? Byron, you look like you got something to say, Byron. I know your face. I know you. Don't even laugh at me. I know your face, Byron.
No, I did, but no, that's not, I want to give this time to Q. I'm perfectly fine. That's knowing me all too well.
Yeah, I do know you, Byron. I want to hear it. Don't you dare, because you know us. We'll be on to the next thing. If you're hearing it, then I need you to share because I know that look. I know all of y'all's looks.
No, I was loving what Jeff said, and it just stimulated, a lot of thoughts as he was speaking, right? And and it wasn't nothing new to add. It was just expanding on what we've talked about. Um, Literally, the challenge. I honestly believe, and Jeff just nailed it, man. When we're talking about sin coming, I want to talk about sin presenting itself and manifesting in different forms. Jeff covered that. That I was glad he did. When I hear my brothers speak or espouse things that I'm thinking about, I know that we're serving Christ, right?
Come
Because
on.
sometimes I don't even have to say it because I can count on X, or I can count on Jeff or you or Q, right, to cover it. And I know that's when we're doing the right thing. And so I don't have anything to add. I just wanted to say that, it's confirmation, and it feels good when you get that confirmation.
Amen.
It really does. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, it does. And that's what we're hoping that these next, this show and three more are going to do for you. Because I say it again, and I say it very strongly, and those that walk with me know I don't say it unless it's true. The Lord called for this month. He called for these topics. And obviously, it makes sense. Okay? Jesus always says, I'm always going to give you what you need in a time of when you really need it. And the next thing that I love that he says, I'm always going to, if you find yourself in a situation, I will help you have a way out. Okay, and I'm grateful for that, Lord. This may be him speaking through us, that if he knows that this is us, he's saying, my child, listen to me. Now, get correct with me, and it's going to be okay. Because even in that moment with Peter still ended up being someone that Jesus loved so much that even though he knew he was going to denounce him, he said, but just do me a favor, when you turn back, knowing he was going to turn back, can you please go strengthen your brothers? Don't forget them. And so, Pastor Q, I'm going to let
Yeah.
you kind of go ahead, Byron. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say I love the part where and we were talking about how knowing this, Jesus still allows it to happen. Let these things. He knows that it serves a greater purpose, right? And that's really why things are played out the way they are. Because at the end of the day, it has to play out, and it's playing out. I want to talk on that just or speak on that just because I think that's where we are kind of today, right? We have to, as people may lose faith, thinking, why would the Lord allow these things to happen? You have to understand and realize it this is serving God's purpose, right? There is no not serving, forgot about us, none of that. This is serving the Lord's his design, his purpose.
Yes.
That's all
Oh
I'm
my
saying.
God, Byron, you know what?
Yeah.
God is really making sure that everything that we had on our list got covered because that's on my list. Come on, Lord. Woo, I love when he's in the presence. And that's the other thing that he needs you to know so that you can have faith. Everything you see, because from the moment this all happened, God was in control of everything you think was horrific. God was allowing it. God even allowed the horrific to happen to his own son, Jesus. So we sit here and say, how could Jesus allow this to happen or God allow this to happen? Well, let's go back to what happened to his son so that things could be. And then I say this because I want to add to you, Byron, because God is just, speaking. Now imagine if Peter didn't betray the Lord. Would his ministry and his conviction been as strong? Because the thing that he needed to go through, he was going to be persecuted. He was going to be thrown in a jail cell. He was going to be beaten. And he needed to have a strength of being so anchored that not even a beating, almost knocking him senseless, was going to get him to not rise back up and still preach the word. Sometimes that place we fail is exactly where God wants us so that we understand the ramifications so that, man, we're even more anchored than what we were before. So this is so good. So, Pastor Q, over to you as we close out.
Yeah, these are all awesome points. I would like to bring it back to Jesus.
Okay.
What would Jesus do, right? We don't have to ask that question because we just read what Jesus did. Here he is sitting at the table knowing that Judas is betraying him, has already betrayed him, right? Essentially. He just has one more act yet to do. He could have been angry. He could have been resentful, right? There's a whole bunch of different sins that could have been taken over. But Jesus didn't give in to that. He was still loving and serving and willing to go to the cross even for Judas. Right? Even though he knew Judas had been, that Satan had taken him over, right? Possessed him. He's still laying his life down for Judas. And then when you go forward to y'all's discussion about Peter, right? Again, Jesus knows that before the next day's over, he's going to die, and yet he's praying for Peter. He's praying for Peter.
That's deep.
I'm about to go die, but I'm going to pray for you. And he prays for his faith of all things. He doesn't pray for him to have health. He doesn't pray for his hair to grow back. Sorry, baby. He doesn't pray for, something temporal, right? He's focused on the eternal. He's praying for his faith because it's his faith. It's faith that heals. It's faith that restores.
Come on.
It's his faith that's going to hold him, right? And this is what Jesus is doing. He's so focused on serving. He's so focused on lifting up. He's so focused on solidifying and strengthening and putting resolve in these people and strengthening their faith so that they can withstand the enemy. Because the enemy's trying to kill Peter.
Yeah.
So he wants to sift you like wheat.
Sift you like wheat.
It was the same scene as Job when Satan's up in heaven saying, hey, I want Job. There's Satan up in heaven. He says, hey, Satan has asked for you. Right? And yet here's Jesus petitioning, standing in the gap for Peter.
That's deep.
I mean, this is, the enemy's coming against him, and yet here he is standing his ground, standing in the gap. He's about to die. Get beaten, get flesh stripped off of him. He knows all this is coming, and yet he's still standing, serving, turning the other cheek, not sinning. He doesn't give place to sin. Still, right? Even when his own life is threatened. It's just amazing. That's the example.
That's the example.
That's the example.
That's the example. Well, you guys, I'm really excited that you've joined. And again, like I'm telling everybody, please share this. Don't leave without sharing it. I'm also going to say, if you did not watch the two shows that are the foundational pieces to what this is all about, because the Lord had me do two shows and do nothing else, not even go live this week. This is the beginning of October. Also, that this will be the only shows that I'm doing this month. I will not be going live on Monday. I will not be doing a Word Up on Tuesday. This is the only focus for this month, is right here, gathering. And I know what God's going to do with that. Just believe it if he's calling for it. And so please go watch those other two episodes. And then please make sure, there's people that need this right now. When we talk about raising up and being, that body for Christ, that example for Christ, tag your friends on this. And copy this and send it to them privately if you want to. Hey, I need you to watch this. To strengthen them up, like he said to Peter. Now go strengthen your brother. Go strengthen your sisters. Go strengthen your mom. Go strengthen your dad. Go strengthen your loved ones, your friends, even strengthen your enemies, okay, to share it. And so with that, I want to close out in prayer, because I know with everything that we do, when we are making sure to take back territory from the enemy wants to strike back. And this month is about cutting bonds, breaking them in Jesus' name, and taking back territory that the enemy is truly trying to take over. And as this show, and for all of us, we are going to stand in the gap for many. And so, Lord, I just want to lift this all up. Those that are here, that are hosts of this show, Lord, Byron, my brother Xavier, my brother Jeff, and Lord, and all of their loved ones, their daughter, their son, their family, their mothers, their uncles, Lord, everybody attached to their family, Lord, cover them. Lord, cover them as they stand up, Lord, and preach the gospel to share the gospel so that people could hear the gospel and know the gospel, Lord, and not be bewildered, betrayed, or wooed, or taken over, Lord, or lied to by whatever the enemy uses. The enemy will use those things, as Jeff said, that feels good, but the enemy will use those things that tend to your emotions, that validate your emotions, that validate your anger, validate your hate, validate your feelings of forsakenness. He'll use those things knowing because of that hurt and pain, you will just follow because of that moment and not even look to see the depths, as I said last week. What is behind the veil? What is behind the cloth? What is it rooted in? What do they believe in? Who are they praying to, and who are they following? Because, Lord, if it doesn't look like you, it doesn't sound like you, and it doesn't match to the word, it ain't you, Lord. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Father, you don't operate in gray. You're black and white. So it's very easy for us to look at something. If we come to you and get in the word and it doesn't match the word, then it's not your work. It's not of you, Lord. And Lord, may our beliefs and Lord and all these things with politics and all of those things just fall by the wayside, Lord, because we must first come correct and get aligned with you, Lord. And then you will speak to us. And then you reveal to us. And then you will do unto us. And Lord, and not only that, you say when it comes to our needs, that Lord, you're the one to go to. That you're the head. Lord, you're the president over our life. Lord, you're who we put on the throne over everything. With our home, our house, our health, our wealth, our finances, our family, our children, those we love, Lord, and even our future, Father God, it's you. And that even though things were tough, even though things look rough, even though things may get even rough, Lord, you say, for my children, I will pluck them out. Lord, I will put even a covering over them. They will not be afflicted by the way of the world. And if they are, not a hair on their head will be hurt or a clothing of them be burned, Lord. And then we've got to live like that. But it's our faith, Lord, that activates that. It's our faith that truly gives us the whole Black Panther Wakanda shield, Lord, that allows us to be in a shield of covering from you, Father God, so that you can cover us from the enemy, Lord. Lord, cover us right now. Cover those that are joined on this line, Lord, that are live, those that even hopped on a little bit, had to hop off, those that are going to pick it up later, those that are going to get it later, Lord. Lord, use this for your will. Use this for your work. Use this, Lord, to call your children to you. Let them hear your voice and not Byron's or Jeff's or Xavier's or Pastor Q or even myself. Let it be that they hear you, Father God, or that it just rattles their cage in such a way that they're disturbed enough to want to get in the word, to want to test this, to want to challenge it, Lord, to even want to rebuke it, Lord, that they pull up their Bible to go and read it for themselves. And that, Lord, and then those that are turning their own ways, as you say, you're so busy building your house, who's building my house? That those of us that share it, Lord, that we'll share it to get it in front of somebody, Lord, that you're trying to call to you. To wake them up, because Lord, if they're not focused on you and they're not diving in the word and girding up and strengthening, Lord, they are a sheep out in the forest, Lord, for the wolf to get them, Father God. And Lord, and you will even pack us all up and lock us up to go and get the one. Lord, let this even get to the one, Father God. So Lord, protect this work. Protect those that share, those that are on, those that are going to be changed, Lord, and go out and stand up, those that are even the hosts of this show, their family members, Lord. And any plans of the enemy, Lord, I cancel in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, and I cast it out into the nearest unclean thing, Lord. And not only the nearest unclean thing, destroy it, Lord. Burn it down to the ground where it can never raise again, Lord. Because we came to do work. We came to do your work, Lord, this month and every month, Lord. Because as you're sharing with me, the world needs superheroes, but the world needs superheroes for you, Lord. That's where we're at, Lord. So I just ask all these things in the name of your Son. And because we are yours and we carry your last name. Your last name. Amen. All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday. Won't be live any other day. Right here, you guys, same Batcave time at 6:55 Central Standard, 7:55 on the East Coast. You guys, and please, again, like I say again over and over, please share this or get it to somebody who you know needs to be strengthened right now. Bye-bye, you guys. Absolutely love you. Gonna make sure that I'm ready to go. I think I am. Bye-bye.